Veronica presents the AI Repertory Theatre's production of New World Papers. Book 1, The Historian's Tale, by K.B. Shaw. Chapter 13, Disappearances.
Like sheep waiting for slaughter. That's what the man said. I was in the meeting area of Pod G with Addie, Joe, and the twins. We were discussing some of the comments made during the night's meeting. Slaughter. It's unthinkable that the council would do such a thing. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen them kill a man.
You what?
Said Sean. Your sister Jenna never told you.
Told us what?
Asked Toby. About last summer, during Red Nights. They shook their heads. The mount was empty except for Jenna, Dean Ambrose, and me. The headmaster returned unexpectedly and told us that important people were going to meet in the great room that night. He sent us to our rooms and told us to stay there. I fell silent and sighed deeply as I recalled the events of that night.
Go on,
prodded Sean. I sneaked onto the upper level that rings the great hall. I noticed that Ambrose was there too, in the shadows directly across from my hiding place. He was spying just like me. He never said anything afterwards, so I don't think he saw me. I heard voices in the darkness below. Then a beamed lantern was lit and two dark men, the council's thugs, dragged a third man into the room. They called him their prisoner. One of the dark men was Wessler.
the guy who burned down the manor?
I nodded, and Sean let out a low whistle. The men in the shadows asked the prisoner McCrae.
McCrae?
Vernon McCrae? A smallish fellow? Yeah, you knew him?
He's an innkeeper in Plainsworth. I fought there a couple of times. Nice guy. Wait, knew him?
I nodded. They questioned him about the movement. He refused to tell them anything, so, on command of one of the men in the shadows, the larger dark man, not Wessler, slammed McCrae in the head. I heard his neck snap. He crumpled to the floor, dead.
Bloody screel,
I've heard stories about the council,
said Joe.
What kind of stories?
Asked Addie.
of disappearances, of accidents that weren't accidents.
Disappear him? That's exactly what Wessler asked. And one of the men replied, no, the body will send a message, make it look like an accident. That'll satisfy the citizens, yet the movement will see it for what it is.
So the stories are true.
Toby put his arm around Joe and held her close. We sat in silent contemplation for several minutes. Then I made a decision. We're a team, aren't we? I said to Addie and Joe. We've been tasked with documenting the history of New World, haven't we?
Of course. What are you trying to say?
We all have an important decision. All of us who are trapped down here like sheep. What should we do with our discoveries when we get topside? Everyone should have all the information about the council's actions. I propose that we interview all the people here and document their stories about incidents such as disappearances or unusual accidents. The others agreed about the importance of this undertaking.
But we should wait until the festivities are over. Let's let everyone have a couple days of happiness.
Joe's right.
We'll begin in 2 days then. The two of you will be busy in the archive.
The two of us? And where will you be?
I'll be with Toby and Sean breaking down the wall.
I want to be there.
And I want to begin my work on the archive, but the missus wants me to witness firsthand the breaking down of the wall,
We have too many tasks.
said Joe.
They're going to overwhelm us.
I agree. So who do we get to collect the stories from the people? Any suggestions?
Lenore,
Said Aiden without pause. I didn't respond, and Aiden took offense.
what's wrong with Lenore? What?
The truth is, she doesn't seem to like me much.
I don't think she dislikes you.
Addie's reply didn't sound confident,
I've seen the nasty look she gives Fallon.
said Sean, always happy to stir up an argument. Addie withered at the nods of agreement from Toby and Joe.
She's been cool to me lately, too. But I don't think she dislikes you, Fallon. She's just jealous, I think.
Ha! Jealous.
Yes, jealous of you.
Of me? For what? Because I was given access to the archive and she wasn't?
No, well, maybe some, but mostly for you being with me.
I was dumbfounded. She wanted me for herself?
Ew!
Typical male reaction.
Said Joe.
They all think every woman wants to contract with them.
She glared at Toby and Sean.
What?
What?
Aiden chewed her lip, then said,
Lenore wants me. Misses me, I should say. She's like my older sister. We've been inseparable ever since I came to live with grandmother. That is, until last spring, when I went to Agricida to spy on the Mount. In spite of the circumstances, she was happy that she and I were together down here. Then you showed up and...
Again, I feel like I've done something wrong.
You haven't. I haven't. She hasn't. Anyway, I know she'd do a thorough job of gathering the stories.
She would.
Said Joe. I know, I admitted. The sky over the commons was cloudless when Addie and I arrived for breakfast the next morning. People were dressed as if it were an early summer day. The mood in the mess was bright and cheery. We didn't see Lenore, so we went back to the courtyard and sat down, hoping to catch her on her way in. Sean showed up a few minutes later, then Joe and Toby.
That was a good talk last night.
Said Joe. The first of many. I think we're going to have a lot to discuss about our findings in the archive.
Say, Joe,
Aiden's eyes lit up and a grin formed on her face.
why don't you move to our pod?
That's a great idea. Joe turned to Toby.
Would you mind?
No problem.
For once, Sean sat quietly, no mischief in his eyes. I slapped him on the shoulder and said, "You too, boyo." He smiled and said,
Lots of room to spread out. You'll hardly know I'm there.
Yeah, right.
said Toby, returning the smile. We chatted excitedly about the new arrangements, and I almost missed Lenore entering the mess. I shot up from the table and hurried toward her, grabbed her arm, and said, "Lenore!" She turned, saw it was me, and jerked her arm away, giving me that look I'd grown accustomed to. I could tell that Lenore saw Addie in the courtyard behind me, and I could imagine the look on Addie's face because Lenore's expression softened suddenly, if artificially. She said,
Good morning.
"It is a good morning," I replied cheerily. She wasn't going to get the best of me today. Plus, I sincerely wanted to try to understand her feelings. "May we join you for breakfast?" I motioned to the gang at the table. Lenore hesitated, but she finally forced a smile.
Certainly.
As breakfast progressed, Lenore began to relax. The more we shared, the more she became involved. "To put it bluntly, this historian job is becoming an enormous chore," I said. "I can't read every word of every text in the archive or witness every event. I'll have to count on all of you to carry some of the burden. We need to seek out sources for the histories we don't have." "I don't understand," said Sean. "We don't know the council's side,"
Like that matters.
But it does.
said Lenore in support of our argument.
The council is at the heart of our society, and therefore at the heart of our history on this world.
And it has questions to answer.
Said Joe.
Who are the dark men? Who made the decision to burn us out? Why do they do what they do?
Histories and fictions,
What did you say?
asked Aiden. The code bans histories and fictions, both written and oral. We're told, almost from birth, to never look back, but to pledge our lives to the service of today and the building of tomorrow. When a student at the Mount tries to argue that the council's statistical records are, in fact, histories, he's told, and I quote, "Young man, records such as births, deaths, and financial transactions are necessary for today's legal and commercial purposes. Production, weather, and crop yield records are essential for future planning,"
So?
said Toby. Histories and fictions! Don't you see? The council considers histories and fictions to be the same. Lies! We have to prove them wrong. We must verify the stories we gather before we can call them history. If we can't verify something, it's just a story. It's just a fiction. Lenore gave me a serious look.
What was your recounting of the assault on the manor? History or fiction?
I had to ponder the question some time before I answered. History. Everyone I interviewed was an eyewitness. They told me only what they themselves saw. In their entirety, all the interviews corroborated each other. I considered my next question carefully before speaking it aloud. Lenore, Addie, Joe, was there any attempt by you or others to coordinate your statements before talking with me?
No.
Answered Addie emphatically, followed by the others. Then yes, it was a history, I said, satisfied with my conclusion.
Then that's the standard we all must abide by.
Said Joe. I turned to Lenore. will you consider taking charge of compiling a history of the abuses of the council?
I'll be honored. If you agree, I'll use your account of the assault on the manor as the first entry and let it be a guide on how to present the stories I gather.
I'm sorry we can't give you access to the archive. For the time being, only Addie, Joe, and I are allowed. But you are invited to join us in Pod G if you like. Joe and the twins are moving over today. Lenore grinned broadly and held back tears.
Welcome to the team.
Said Joe. The twins echoed the welcome. Lenore put her hand on Addie's.
Thank you.
She said. She reached across Addie with her free hand, lifted my hand, and set it atop hers. Then she tilted her head to the others, and they offered their hands in a sign of unity.
To history.
She said.
To truth.
Said Joe. May they both be the same, I said. We spent the rest of the day helping our friends make the move to Pod G. In fact, we discovered that many people were spreading out among the pods now that we had electricity. Again, I was struck by the concept of groups within groups. Although we were all part of the movement and shared a common goal, people sorted themselves in various ways. Friendship, working groups, even by age. Interestingly, the people uniting in one pod were those who had voiced the desire to get topside, fan out across the land, and spread word of our findings without delay. Frank Bianchi, who seemed to lead the group, never missed a chance to share his feelings about leaving the quarters as soon as possible. That evening, as Addie and I relaxed at a table in the square, Bianchi strode toward us. He had thin lips and a receding hairline. His body was tense and erect. I stood as he approached.
We've never actually met,
He said, extending his right hand.
I'm...
Francis Bianchi, I said, taking his hand and shaking it.
Yes, call me Frank. May I talk with you?
Of course.
Said Addie with her most charming smile. The best Bianchi could muster was a weak upturn of the mouth.
Thanks.
He said as he pulled out a chair and sat. He didn't speak at first, just sat there, head bowed, drumming the fingers of his left hand nervously. I broke the tense silence. Are you here to convince me we need to break out and spread the word of our discoveries?
No, I figure you heard what I had to say about that the other night.
I did, and I can't say that I disagree, but...
Yeah, but...
He lifted his head and looked me in the eyes.
The reason I'm here is my son.
I didn't know you had a son. Which one is he?
He's not here, miss. They took him. They took my son.
Who are they?
The council. I heard you wanted our stories about people who disappeared.
Oh, of course. Lenore Bedford will be talking to everyone.
I want to tell you, the historian, personally. I want you to know why I feel the way I do about the people's right to know.
There was a deep sadness in his eyes. Go on, I said.
I'm not a solarist. My son Danny is. He's a good boy, an anima two older than you, I think. We're guildsmen, wheelwrights by trade. We lived in a small town on the plains, in the middle of nowhere. You know, don't you? You came from up Agresita way, didn't you?
I nodded.
We're farther east, like I said, in the middle of nowhere. Danny's a bright kid, makes up stories to tell me and his friends, stories to scare us or make us laugh. I told him to be careful, you know, the code and all. But we lived in the middle of nowhere, understand? Everyone loved his stories. Well, summer before last, Danny came back from guild school to serve his apprenticeship with me. He had these solarist writings he got from a friend at school, and they caught his fancy. Danny showed me the papers, and I read them. I thought they were just more of Danny's stories. He said, "No, Dad, this is real, it's history." I warned him about histories, about the trouble it would cause if the council caught him with the papers, but he said, histories just tell the truth about the past. Why should that cause trouble? I took the papers from him just the same. He didn't speak to me for a week and I couldn't bear it, so I gave the papers back. But hide them, I said. 1/5 night during the red night before last, we went for supper at the village public house. Like always, most of the village was there, whole families, for food and the men for the ale.
What's ale?
What's ale? Why, ale's a golden drink made from grain. Against the code, you know. It makes you feel good, so it has to be against the code, don't it? Gruber, the publican, brews it in his basement. Only serves it on 5th night. We live out in the middle of nowhere. What harm could come of it? So some of the boys pulled up a stool in front of the hearth and asked Danny for a story. He got up on the stool and said, "No story tonight, fellas." Everyone in the room called out for stories. "No stories," he says, "but I have a history to tell." And he told them what the Solarist papers said, with some additions of his own. You understand, my boy has a great imagination.
Sounds like a delightful person.
Thanks, miss. He is.
He paused and looked down again, his fingers drumming the table. With a sigh, Bianchi resumed his tale.
What we didn't see was a stranger who came in with his black coat and hat. It's the middle of Red Nights, and he's wearing a long coat. Danny was almost to the end of his history when a whistle blew. We all turned toward the sound and saw a blackcoat point.
Addie leaned close to me and whispered.
A dark man.
I nodded as I listened to Frank Bianchi's story.
The door opened, and a dozen men in green jackets with short clubs in their hands rushed in. Blackcoat kept blasting on the whistle, and the thugs started swinging at anyone and everyone. The inn was in chaos, screaming, crying, bloodied men, women, and children trying to get away.
Aiden gasped and clutched my hand.
The whistle stopped, and then the beating stopped. The only sound was the moans and whimpers from the wounded. Blackcoat walked to the middle of the room and shouted, "You are in violation of the code, serving an illegal substance and gathering for the purpose of treason." My Danny pulled himself up from the floor. Blood flowed from his head and down his swollen cheek. He stood up to the men and said, "What treason?" Blackcoat signaled to one of his men, and the scriel struck Danny in the gut with his club.
Frank was fighting back tears.
Danny doubled over, and that thug landed a blow on the back of my son's head. Danny fell limp to the floor. "The spreading of Solarist lies," says Blackcoat. "That's what treason." The thugs dragged Danny from the inn, and that's the last I ever saw him.
Bianchi collected himself before going on.
But that's not the end of it. They tied up old Gruber and took the rest of us outside under the glow of Red Nights. They had horses waiting, and a wagon that looked like a cage. Then they set the inn ablaze. "Gruber!" I cried, and started to run to the inn, but they beat me to the ground. I heard the old man screaming and the villagers, my friends, keening. "It was an accident," said Blackcoat. "You understand? An accident caused by the illegal activities of the innkeeper. Any of you say any different and we'll come back and your houses will burn." The thugs took us away, one by one, and warned us again before sending us home. Come morning, all the boys around Danny's age were gone. Tracks showed the horses had headed upland, and we could see their dust on the horizon. Couldn't stand by and watch the villages trying to rebuild their lives. Before my bruises healed, I headed to Agricida to find out more about Solarists. A man named Howard saw my condition and took me in. I didn't tell him my story. I never told anyone, for fear what would happen to my friends back home. Mr. Howard never asked either. A good man he is. He and his daughter Jenna were part of the movement.
Jenna Howard?
Do you know her? Yes, of course you do. She's head of house at the Mount, isn't she?
She's a friend.
And mine.
Well, they're the reason I came to be here with the missus. And Danny's the reason I need to go topside, to spread the word. Someone has to stop the council. And I have to save Danny. If he's still alive. You see how vicious these people are, don't you? My village. The manor. Someone's got to stop them.
End of chapter 13. Next up, Beyond the Quarters.